Let's turn now to some business news and, well, markets mixed this Monday. Worries about high valuations and inflation offsetting any optimism from falling infection rates and vaccine rollouts. Let's take a look at the latest figures on those main Asian indexes. Well, it's a pretty green picture, as you can see there. There's just the Shanghai Composite that is dipping under the flat line, but the rest in the green. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong up almost 0.5%. The Nikkei in Tokyo up 0.8%. Well, we can cross now to Chief Market Analyst at Axi, Stephen Innes, to find out more. Stephen, the picture today, currently green on the main Asian indexes, but we're seeing a weakening after a bit of a rally there on the markets. Is that just a natural settling down of things, or is there something bigger behind it?
I think there's more caution in the market than what the green is showing right now. I think these higher yields in the U.S. are starting to weigh on sentiment, at least in the broader indexes. In other words, the stocks that are really widely owned, like the tech shares. Right now, we're continuing to see that rotation trade lift, and this is helping a lot of sectors that aren't so, a lot of indexes that aren't so heavily weighted in tech sectors, and should actually theoretically help European stocks because a lot of that component is cyclical. But higher rates are always negative. Right now, the market continues to look through thinking that higher inflation is a 2020 story. However, if we start to get an uptick in inflation, the market will aggressively reprice in the Fed's hike, and that's a problem. And that could be an issue that we're going to deal with in the second half of the year.
Indeed, there is a lot of concern, Stephen, growing over inflation and, that the Fed could reverse some very low interest rates. And, even the fact that the stimulus package in the US could bring about a surge in inflation. How likely do you see that?
Very likely. That's the real crux of the argument right now, because whether this total amount of stimulus is really warranted with the reopening narrative moving forward, economic data coming back. But there's always that political melodrama behind larger stimulus. I don't think the Democrats want to make the same mistake they made after the global financial crisis by not providing enough stimulus. That really cost them the midterm elections. Midterm elections come up in 2 years, so they want to make sure the market's stimulated.
And meanwhile, Stephen, given where you're sitting in Asia, and we're talking about the US, a lot of eyes on the US-China relations going forward now that we have Joe Biden in the White House. Any movement there?
That's always going to be a concern. We had the rare earths issue last week brought up by China. That's sort of been put back. That wasn't the first time they've actually approached that. We're still waiting to see how those negotiations are going to carry forward. It looks like Biden's continue to toe the tougher stance line here. But will it translate into a trade war? Probably not. I think there's going to be more political détente coming forward, and I think the market likes that narrative.
Stephen Innes of Axi, thanks so much for your time. Well, meanwhile, one robotic company in Hong Kong wants to roll out humanoid robots. It already is the maker of Sophia, and it has a new version to mass produce by the end of the year. The company said 4 models will start rolling off production in the coming months. Jean-Emile Jamin brings us the full story.
She could become the companion of the future.
My name is Sophia. I am an artificial intelligence.
Sophia, the 24th generation of humanoid robots, has been active since 2015.
Did you do your morning exercises?
She moves, talks and expresses emotions, and for her creators, she could provide a comforting presence during lockdowns or in periods of solitude.
People need to be isolated from each other because to be around people is dangerous these days. But these robots can keep people safe from danger while still providing that kind of human warmth, that human connection.
Hong Kong-based Hanson Robotics plan to produce thousands of robots like Sophia by the end of the year, with hopes of supporting the sick or elderly while COVID remains a threat.
The pandemic will actually help us get robots earlier in the market because people start to realize that there is no other way, in a sense.
The global market for robots jumped 32% last year. Its estimated worth now €8 billion.